Maths University Information Technology, abbreviated MUIT, is the university which has been founded on the value system that was propounded by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi ji. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought the concept of transforming transforming potentiality into actuality. To elaborate further, he postulated that each individual is in the mold of godliness. It is for him and for him alone to transform that potentiality of being in godliness into action of his own through the process of thinking, through the process of feeling, and through the process of doing. The MUIT Act was passed in 2001, but somehow for many reasons, we could not establish the university, and it was in 2012 when we embarked upon to establish Maharishi University Information Technology with main campus at Lucknow. Thereafter, we thought of operating the university from 1st August 2014 with all courses in art, commerce, science, and technology. In 2015, 1st August, we established another campus at Lucknow with the courses that did not there at main campus Lucknow. In Noida, we have law, animation, and data science. In the university, we have a concept of science of consciousness, which is based on transcendental meditation. Because we believe that for transforming potentiality into actuality, one has to really doing the transcendental meditation which ultimately invokes the consciousness of the person to actualize what he actually is. In university, we have Professor Bhanu Pratap Singh as our Vice Chancellor and Professor A.P. Singh, Akhand Pratap Singh as our Registrar. These two dignitaries have been managing the entire affairs of the university, both campuses at Lucknow and Noida. I myself is from the Indian Air Force, retired as Director Training long time back. I am now at the age of 83 and keeping myself occupied with these friends of mine to do something, my bit, for the cause of education. I must share with you, in the recent NEP, we had forwarded certain suggestions, more particularly for the values, true Lodi no PR, truth, love, righteousness, non-violence, and peace. And these, what we had forwarded for the purpose of implementation, have been verbatim included in the NEP that has been recently passed by the Cabinet. Welcome all of you for the webinar.
Dr. Mangu Singh is the Managing Director of Delhi Metro Rail Corporation. He graduated in Civil Engineering from University of Roorkee, now IIT Roorkee, in 1979, and has contributed greatly in the project implementation of metro in Delhi and Kolkata, and has been responsible for the bringing revolutionary changes in the execution of large metro engineering projects. Being the president of the Tunneling Association of India, he has been introduced new technology and innovative method of construction of metro tunnels and structure. The credit of using seal tunnel boring machines and introducing new Austrian tunneling method for the first time in the country goes to Dr. Singh. He has successfully headed the Clean Development Mechanism project of Delhi Metro, the only such successful project in the railway transportation sector in the world. We welcome you, sir, in this webinar also. So I introduce. So I think we will move from your side and welcome you, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. Let me first congratulate and compliment Professor Dr. B.P. Singh for organizing this very sort of a unique type of program, at least for me. This will be for the first time I am going out of my area of, I will say, area of ease. I must admit that I was not very enthusiastic about this 2 days program, as I realized that I have hardly anything to say on this topic. But then Dr. Singh kept on pursuing with me, and in fact he helped me to save some of my thoughts on this topic, very relevant topic on date. And I then had the courage to agree for this 2 days program. I do not know to what extent I will be helpful or of any help to you and all the listeners. But I'm sure that at least by organizing this type of program on a very relevant topic, at least the focus is there among the students of the university. Please excuse me, there is an urgent call. I'll come just in 2 minutes. Thank you.
सभी लोग अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं कि मतलब कितना जो है आज की डेट में हम लोग सभी लोग जो है रक्षाबंधन का त्यौहार हमारे फैकल्टी मेंबर्स सब स्टूडेंट मना रहे हैं, और उसके बावजूद भी सर ने टाइम निकाला, और उसके बाद आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितनी अर्जेंट कॉल होगी जो सर को जाना पड़ा। तो आप स्थिति समझ सकते हैं कि कितना आज की डेट में किसी भी पोस्ट पर और किसी भी काम को डेडिकेटेडली करना कितना आसान नहीं। तो ये हम लोग सभी फैकल्टी मेंबर्स को समझना चाहिए, सभी स्टूडेंट को समझना चाहिए कि सबसे बड़ी बात डिसिप्लिन होना बहुत ज़रूरी है, जो कि हम अपने कल्चर में यदि नहीं लाएंगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली आप हम कितनी भी अच्छे से अच्छे फील्ड में अपने एक्सपर्टाइज क्यों ना हो, तो वो चीज़ें कहीं ना कहीं लैग करेंगी हमारी लाइफ। तो वो आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितना टफ है और कितना डिसिप्लिन होना पड़ता है, और उसके बाद क्या स्थिति है आप लोग अंदाज़ा लगा सकते हैं। तो सभी फैकल्टी मेंबर्स से, सभी फैकल्टी मेंबर्स जिन लोगों ने आज ज्वाइन किया है, उन्होंने जिन लोगों ने आज ज्वाइन नहीं किया है उनको भी सभी लोग बताएं और उनको समझाएं कि कहाँ पर क्या स्थिति है, डिसिप्लिन पार्ट कितना इम्पोर्टेंस है और कितना हम लोग इसको समझते हैं। यदि हम इन पार्ट पर नहीं ध्यान देंगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली कहीं ना कहीं हम लोग ही सफ़र करने वाले होंगे। तो ये चीज़ें समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है, और यही जब तक हम लोगों के बीच में खुद हम इसको फील नहीं कर पाएंगे तो हम अपने स्टूडेंट को कैसे समझा पाएंगे। तो सबसे पहले बात है कि हम उस चीज़ को खुद फील करें और उसके बाद फिर वो चीज़ें सब स्टूडेंट में लाएं, तभी चीज़ें यूनि डायरेक्शंस में आगे बढ़ेंगी।
प्रोफेसर भानु, जो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये है, जो लोग नहीं आ पाए हैं।
जी सर ने ज्वाइन कर लिया है।
Sorry, I had to attend an urgent call. So, coming straightway to the point, and talking on upskilling, I think you will all agree that upskilling is a very regular exercise and a regular thing, and happening from the ages, sometimes being forced by the improvement in the technology, the development in the technology, and it's a cyclic process. Whatever you do in the industry or everywhere, you will always strive for improvement in efficiency, improvement in ease of working, and accordingly, there are innovations, there are development in the technology, and which needs actually upgradation of skilling. This current scenario, current pandemic, actually has accelerated this issue, but otherwise, things were changing very fast in last 15-20 years. And in fact, there is a report by McKinsey Global Institute, which was published in 2017, which says that 14% of the entire workforce in the industries, they have to change their occupation, they have to change their skilling, basically. That means the skill is required to be changed. The introduction of new technologies, the artificial intelligence, and things like that are very rapidly influencing the skill requirement. This coronavirus has made this question only very urgent currently. Now, as far as now upskilling requirement is concerned, let us first learn something from the past, which I personally have the experience of seeing some of the very large scale change in the skill requirement in the past. I can recollect in 80s, many of the faculty members probably will recollect when the introduction of PCs and the availability of the computer and the easy computer language started, user-friendly things started. That was the time when the huge change in the skilling was required. I cite one example in one of my posting in late 80s. One of the important job required to be done was preparing a comparative statement for the bids received to find out who is the lowest bidder. So if I give an example, a bill of quantity having say 100 items, and this bill of quantity in the physical form used to be given to the bidders, all the potential bidders, and they will fill this entire bill of quantity, their rates on the rates column, and then submit. As you recollect the submission of tender, dropping in the tender box, and then at the designated time and date, this box will be opened and the bids of each and every bidder will be taken, read one by one, all the 100 items, the rate quoted by him. This is done for all the bidders in presence of the all bidders to ensure the transparency that what one has quoted. And then thereafter the exercise starts in the office to prepare a big table and the entry of rates given by the different bidders in different column, and then quantity multiplied by the rates, the amount against each item, and at the end of that, totaling. So you can imagine if there are 10 bidders, 100 items. So 100 into 10, 1000 multiplications will be required. And before that, entry of each and every rates in the table. This was a very sensitive exercise, very cumbersome exercise. And then once somebody does it, the second person need to check it and cross-check it to arrive at the final figure. A tender of such magnitude can take any time 15 days to 20 days to prepare such a big comparative statement. So it was late 80s when by that time the Word, Excel sheet, this started coming, and I had some knack of, though I was a civil engineer, not having any background of a computer and all that. But then I created a template, asked my people to use that template and fill the figures so that the results are available very fast. But to my surprise, there was huge resistance and the apprehension of losing the job. And over and above that, this was in Calcutta. I was posted in Calcutta at that time. Very trade union minded people. And it's a huge, in fact, resentment that here is an officer who has come, he will take all our jobs. And so it took a lot of time to convince them, but not before I personally demonstrated that this is good for them. So what I did actually, one such tender opening, I sat myself and I prepared this template on Excel sheet well in advance. And the moment these rates were being read, I kept on filling in the template on the computer. And by the time they completed reading all the rates, I had the result with me, who is L1, who is lowest one, second lowest, third lowest, and all that. That was automatic, the computer did all the things. And when this was demonstrated to them, then they realized that this is an item which will help them, which will ease their working, which will be very helpful to them. With a lot of persuasion, ultimately things changed and people adopted. And by the time I left that organization in period 3 years, this entire exercise was completely computerized. By that time, not many organizations in government actually started the computerization. So this, I just give one example. Unless the users, the persons who are directly involved, they find the advantage in upskilling, an advantage in doing things in different way. This will have a difficulty. There are many such things like boom in telecommunication, the way of working. Now the situation post-COVID is slightly different. It is not a result of technological development. It is actually the way people have started thinking. It is the way they started or they will travel. The priority they will have. The priorities probably now everybody will agree. The priorities will be the personal health, personal security, personal safety. And therefore, any plan of action has to take into account all this changed scenario. Now, again, I'd like to give an example of our own Delhi Metro, how we are contemplating how we will do post-COVID. Before the lockdown, before the current scenario, Delhi Metro, with a network of around 390 kilometers, was carrying about 60 lakh journeys every day. with the help of 5,000 train trips with about 300 train sets, and was actually a lifeline of Delhi. But when you test it on the issues like social distancing, hygiene, safety in the current scenario, at that time we were carrying 60 lakhs passengers every day, and the passenger density inside the coach was as high as 6 persons per square meter in the peak hours, morning, evening hours. Very highly crowded, congested. Then it is not only inside the train. Think the scenario at the platform, where a train of 8 coach, each coach carrying about 300 persons, the entire train carrying about 2,500 passengers, coming out in one go, say at the terminal station or interchange station like Rajiv Chowk or Huda City Center. 2,500 persons coming out from the train onto the platform, coming out on a staircase, escalators, lifts, way to the exit points. Similarly, while entering the stations, the long queues before the counters for taking tokens, recharging the cards. Then again, entering through the automatic fare collection gates, the throughput of those gates is around 25 to 30 persons per minute, so every 2 seconds. And therefore, when you think of that scenario, that type of crowding, that sort of number of persons to be managed, and now you think of post-COVID arrangement, and as and when we are required to start these services, public services, and if you want to keep this in mind, the social distancing, then you will have to organize and arrange the things in such a way that instead of 6 persons per square meter, and if you want to maintain a distance of at least 1 meter, if not the 2 meter inside the train, then you can't have more than 1 person per square meter. And therefore, what does it mean in real term? You will carry almost 15 to 20% of the traffic, which you will all agree financially will not be very viable. Today we are paying salaries of around 12,000, 30,000 people without any revenue. And the scenario, if we have to run only 20% people, will really be very serious issue as far as the financial health is concerned. But assuming and understanding that this scenario is not going to remain for long, only in the beginning, to start with, we may have to follow all these norms, and later on, when things will improve, the corona, you find some solution to corona or herd immunity, whatever it is, you will come back to the your original level of traffic. However, there is a big risk. When you want to have the level of passenger traffic only say 15 to 20%, then you will require to adopt some measures to keep the passengers away. Today in Delhi, for example, around 2.5 crore smart cards are in circulation. The system is not like a train or aeroplane where you can restrict the numbers. You can only allow the people who have reserved seat or reserved berth inside the train. That is not the scenario in the metro systems. And therefore, if you adopt a strategy in such a way that people don't come to you, they keep away from you, so that there is no crowding. So there's a great risk of losing them forever. If you make take measures in such a way so that people are dispelled, you don't allow them to come to your system. In long term, there is a great possibility that they will either form the opinion that it's not good to travel by metro, or at least, or many of them in fact may make alternative arrangements. And in both the scenario, you lose the traffic. And therefore, the strategy has to be very, very rightly and very, I'll say strategically, you have to select all the plan of action. So what we have thought, we have sat together, discussed, consulted some of the experts in the field, found the practices being followed elsewhere, and then we have found some strategy how we will restart the operation. And the first initially strategy will be to build the confidence among the public, because we know the priority is actually this personal safety and personal health. We therefore, when we start the services, we will give this message clear to all the commuters, to the passengers, that their safety is not at risk, their health is not at risk. MRC is taking all precautions, all necessary means to ensure that. And as a result of that, they may face inconvenience of not getting the service, not allowing them to enter the station if the situation arises. So this will be the strategy to have a campaign to bring this aspect among the commuters, that this thing is short-lived, your safety is most important, and ultimately we believe that when things get over, we will get the traffic back. This we plan to do by taking action which is physically visible to the commuters. For example, the disinfection, the regular cleaning, hygiene will be done in such a way that this will be visible to the commuters. Though we know this is a difficult time for us, this additional expenditure will further put burden on us, but this is necessary in order to ensure the confidence level of our commuters. So what we have decided, we prepared a very detailed SOP, and right from the starting point, that is entry to our station, we will have all those thermal scanning, Arogya Setu checking arrangement, and also the arrangement for sanitizing, hand sanitizers. We will have a campaign to tell people to follow the Arogya Setu, to download the Arogya Setu, and then all our points visible to the public, like train railings, the doors, the lift, the escalators. There, somebody will be visible to be doing the disinfection part of it. then duties and responsibility of all individuals who are responsible for operating and carrying the passenger, dealing with the passengers, what to do in case of an emergency, in case of somebody is detected positive, in case of somebody is having the symptom of corona, what is required to be done, the contact points with the civil authorities, the handling of such passengers, all those detailed guidelines has been prepared. There is another important point which the people have in mind, the passenger has in mind, that the trains are air conditioned, the stations are air conditioned, and therefore they are potential risky area. So we therefore will try to dispel this apprehension. We have also prepared a protocol for running the air conditioning plants in these stations. What we have decided that right in the morning hours, we will run the air conditioners up to say 10 o'clock, we will run air conditioners in open mode. That means 100% circulation. There is no recirculation of air. Then during mid of the day where maximum heat load is there, say between 10 to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, we'll run air conditioners and say with the 50% circulation and things like that, so that the risk is minimized and there is no possibility of infection being spread because of the air conditioning. Another thing which we have decided is to run the maximum number of trains at maximum train frequency, so that the availability, the capacity available is maximum, and the possibility of overcrowding is not there. So this is as far as on the operation side. We have done this type of planning, and accordingly all our employees, those who are involved in the operation maintenance, they have been trained on these new requirements, the new planning of whatever has been provided in the standard operating procedure. We have taken the advantage of this situation of working on the distance, and on the project side also, we have adopted the latest technology working from distance, and we realized that this is much better than working physically. So for example, the design coordination meetings. The design coordination meetings in the physical form had one inherent difficulty: the availability of all experts at a time. Some experts sitting in, say, UK, somebody is sitting in USA, the expert of the train is in Korea. So getting all them together on the design coordination front was actually a big handicap. But once we started this on through video conferencing, we realized this is no more a problem. Anybody and everybody who is required for the coordination is available. So we then decided that henceforth all our design coordinations and everything will be done on a system where working from the distance will be there. During this process, we also decided to go with a 3D system of drawings on we call it BIM model. Till now, as you know, in the construction industry, the 2D drawings, printed drawings, hard copy, were only being used, and therefore it lacked the possibility of knowing any conflict in 3 dimensions. So today what we have got, a system where all the detailed drawings and designs, all architectural drawing, structural drawings, everything is available in 3D. A complex system like metro inside the metro station. There are large number of equipments to be housed inside the station. The air conditioning, the fire detection system, tunnel ventilation system, signaling, telecom. There are a large number of systems and systems. How they should fit inside the rooms, inside the station area. And then the utilities connecting them, like cables going from one place to other place, the pipings, and there used to be a serious problem of conflict. In a 2D drawing, that was not possible. And today, even at the planning stage, in the design stage, you know exactly where the pipes are going, where the cables are going, is there any conflict. So this also we got the advantage of the current situation, and this is being proved to be very, very fruitful. So, having seen this, some of the examples, having now told about what exactly we are contemplating, if I can conclude that what is required for the industries is the post-COVID, everyone has to decide on changed business model. Prior to COVID, what they were doing, what is their revised business model to survive, to continue, they have to very quickly decide on that. The things have changed, as I mentioned, the food habits have changed, the demands has changed, supply chain is changed, and therefore every industry has to do this as a first step, to evaluate, to do what changes are required and what will be their business model post-COVID. Then second step will be to build their employees, their skill, which are critical to the new business model. They have to see that for the new business model, what will be the requirement, how the employees will work. And when we say it is not simply digital skilling, only digital learning, the entire all aspect, including social, emotional, what skilling is required. I personally have a feeling that this distance working will create a very serious problem as far as the emotional skill is concerned, because the human touch will be missing. When you work from distance, it is much different. When you work physically, meet people physically, it has got a lot of different emotional. It is not simply working. But when you meet on video conferencing like this, you only talk business, you only talk formal. There is hardly any personal or emotional touch to this. And therefore, when I say skill is to be built up, it is not only this formal digital type of thing. Then the third step probably should be go for tailor-made learning program to close the gap. Now you will agree that no ready-made solutions will be available in the market, in the training industry or in the education institutes. Each and every industry, each and every entrepreneur, they themselves has to find out the gap and then make the tailor-made programs to suit them to fill the gap. Another thing which comes to mind is that this has to be done fast. There is not much of time, and therefore the industries has to do it as quickly as possible, as early as possible. And as you will agree with me, doing things fast sometimes may lead to imperfects also, not 100% perfects also, which will actually need midway corrections. So act fast, test it, verify it, and if you feel any corrections required, the corrections should be made, reiterations to be done, and therefore the advantage of starting quickly will be there. My another observation is that reskilling at a small level is easy to install and most of the time it is successful. If we want to change a very big organization, very big setup, it is quite difficult. And there are not much of examples of reskilling program at a much larger scale in a big organization. So my suggestion will be probably breaking it into different segments. If you have a big organization, make it small segments, and then do all this exercise which I mentioned on those segments, and then go for that. Then last things come to my mind that don't cut on learning budget. Sometimes the organizations make mistake on this aspect. When the things are bad, financially things are down, you don't have much of earning, and therefore when it comes to cutting costs, it comes, I mean, the first casualty is training. My suggestion will be don't do any cost cutting as far as the learning budget training is concerned. No investment in training goes waste. This is I believe. So this is what I thought. What I tried my best to put some of my personal experience and then what we are contemplating in Delhi Metro, and then summarizing with formal manner. I once again like to mention that the help and the guidance given by Dr. V.P. Singh has been very helpful, and otherwise I have never given a talk outside the technical area of metro. This is for the first time I have attempted, and again I'm thankful to Dr. V.P. Singh on this. So I hope this whatever I have spoken to will be of some help to you, your students, who are future professionals of the industry, and particularly the final year students, which are going to be very shortly in the industry. And of course, the faculty also probably will be ready, will be better equipped to impart this part of the training to the students. So thank you once again, and allow me to close, and I will be happy to give clarification on any point which I said or anything related to metro. I will be very happy to interact. Thank you.
सर थैंक यू शरण सर। मैं यहाँ पर एक क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहूँगा कि जनरली जैसे कि पहले से ही रहा है कि इंडस्ट्री और इंस्टीट्यूट में जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम में इसमें गैप रहा है कि इंडस्ट्री का जो रिक्वायरमेंट है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एकेडमिक पीछे रह जाता है और इंडस्ट्री की रिक्वायरमेंट आगे बढ़ जाती है। तो उसके सिनेरियो के रेस्पेक्टिवली आज की डेट में सर क्या आप जो भी टेक्निकल इंस्टीट्यूशन है या यूनिवर्सिटी हैं उनको थोड़ा सा आप गाइड करना चाहेंगे कि साहब इस टाइप के कोर्सेज आप लोग स्टार्ट करिए जिसकी मतलब एक मार्केट में रिक्वायरमेंट है, जनरली वो गैप जो है उसको मिनिमाइज किस टाइप से किया जाए?
आई थिंक इस तरह की तो बहुत एक्सरसाइज होती रहती हैं, बहुत अटेम्प्ट इस तरह के होते रहते हैं, लाइक CII और इस तरह के जो bodies हैं, they always keep on working on this. But you are right, it's a fact. There is a big gap between the industry and academic institutions. If I tell you particular about my area, metro transport system, my experience has been I have attempted involving some of very reputed institutions for some of our problem solving. My conclusion is that most of the time they are too slow. The response from the academic institutions are very slow many times, and the industry actually don't have that much time. Particularly like my area of transportation industry, metro, you don't have time to do the research work, to do the because we are already so late. See, urban transport in our country, the metro systems in our country, we are already so much late, and there are so much work being done throughout the globe, and nowadays anything being done anywhere comes so automatically to you. So if I give you example of say like a signaling system of metro, the things are changing so fast that you take up anything, any research work today, by the time you come to some conclusion, there is somebody have already done it on this is a problem, no doubt about it, and I think CII and at some level this needs to be addressed, and maybe that in the academic institutions also, probably they need to create a separate cell for that. Today, what you have, you don't have a cell for interaction with the industry. As far as the development is concerned, you probably will have a cell for getting the job for your students in the industry, or maybe a cell for student welfare, things like that. But I have yet to see any institute, at least to which I have interacted, having any focus on this area.
Sir, DG sir,
I would like to put a, yeah.
You want to ask something? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will. Dr. Mangu, my question is representing the passengers. You must have drawn the SOP to educate passengers to meet the challenging situation post-COVID. What are your plans for that, please?
Oh, this is what I explained. We have prepared a detailed SOP, and this is one of the part of the SOP is the campaign to educate our commuters. This will be through different means. One, our own display system at our stations, announcement in our trains, and also on social media like Twitter, on FM radio. We have all the details of the campaigning to educate the passengers.
My intervention is that notwithstanding when we are going to have the unlock for metro, should you not start this type of education process right now, so that over a period of time, by the time you unlock, passengers are really trained and educated about this change?
One way you are right, but this is slightly a sensitive issue. The moment we started cleaning our stations, the next day media made headlines that metro is going to start now. So the moment we start any campaigning, it will give a very wrong message, wrong signal. And we do not want to be caught on wrong footing, giving reply and answer to the government that how can you. So it's a very sensitive issue, but we are ready with all material. And in any case, the moment they decide to restart services, we cannot do the next day. It will take 2 to 3 days time at least to restart the services.
My last submission is that on behalf of University MUIT, its Board of Governors, I am the Director General, we assure you to give you all the support, whatever you need from us, both our students and the faculty, and including me.
Good. I will certainly keep this offer in mind and we'll certainly move forward. We'll meet for this purpose separately sometime.
Thank you.
Chima sir, you want to ask something? Anybody? One by one? If he or she want to ask something from sir. Dwivedi sir.
Yes, sir. I have a question, sir. We look at DMRC as a role model, like Tata's, in changing the public habits. And our DG Sahab just asked similar question. But I have a question on different tune actually. Even if the COVID is gone, can the people be helped in developing a habit through your own SOP in their family life? I have seen people in Hong Kong or even Germany or in Japan that they wear masks even though there was no COVID. That was 5 years back. If somebody has a cough, he wears a mask. Now with AI, artificial intelligence, you have thermal so that you can segregate people who have some bad health situations. So a habit can be developed. So I just want to ask this question with you.
Well, it's a very valid point. Many countries, they follow this habit of wearing masks. I've seen in Japan, you find at least 30, 40, 50% people wearing a mask. So it's a good habit. And if you say DMRC, in fact, has made many changes in the habit of Delhi people. We have taught them the importance of time, the punctuality. We believe that many people who were very regularly latecomers, having no sort of respect to the timing and punctuality, they have changed. Because today, with the DMRC in position, they have that opportunity, that facility where they can really maintain the punctuality. So we have brought in past also, as far as hygiene is also concerned, you will realize that there is no spitting inside the metro premises. The cleaning standard, nobody throws the any litter inside the metro stations. So these type of habits are already built up. But yes, post-COVID, whatever best can be done, we will certainly try. The advantage, the benefit of the mask, we will take up this. Thank you.
Yeah, this will come with time. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Anybody want to ask something or
Hello,
Hello.
sir. I'm Munish Chawda, sir. Can I?
Chawda ji, sir. Hi. बोलिए sir, Chawda ji.
Sir, my question is, it's not a question. It's a general. We can say that there is a big challenge for all academicians as well as normal parents, that what will be the future of our children nowadays who are studying, especially in 10 plus 1 plus 2 or even in higher studies in universities. So, especially currently final year and third year students of any of the technical course, all are in a very confusing stage. So please tell us, how can we guide them that after COVID they will get better, or not even better, but in a safe position to build their careers. Presently, whatever we tell them, but they are in a confusion, a huge confusion, whether it is he is in +2 or in third year or final year.
Let us be very positive and hopeful about the things. All these bad times, they will get over sooner or later. And I believe and I feel we all will be back. Things will be normal early. And in fact, these type of challenging times only give you the opportunities. And I'm sure things will come back normal soon. And yes, currently these things are not so bright, but we should concentrate on positive aspects. Whatever is there in the current scenario, I will say most of the things are worsened by the media and the social media. You keep on hearing negative, negative, negative. And in these negativities, there are many positive things also. For example, these opportunities, the new areas of learning, new area in the industry, this will come. And I really don't have any straight answer to your question. Rather than being very hopeful and confident that things will soon